Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is Where Are They Now? The video where I take a look at the games I reviewed last year in January 2021. It's been a long year, but a fun one. And then I talk over where are they now? What's going on with them? Have I played them since? Has the review changed? Have they not? Timestamps down below, and all the sections are listed. So if you only care about what's changed, you can skip directly to that section. This video should be a short one. Does not look like I reviewed that many games in January of last year, although we are getting to a point now that I do 4 or 5 reviews a week. We're getting to a point where any single month's going to have 15 to 20 games, depending on exactly how I play it out. But with that said, let's go ahead and start this off. To begin with, we only have one game I haven't played since reviewing it from the games I reviewed last year. Well, last year, January. Carnegie. Carnegie is a game that was on Kickstarter from Quodd Games. I played it. I didn't officially rate or score games back then, but I did. I didn't put them in the videos, but I have them. That would have been a 3.5 for me, potentially trending towards a 4. It was a little more of a first impressions review, because I only got it, just based on when I got the game, I was only able to get a few plays in before covering it, and it's a game that I felt needed more plays. So I did give that caveat when I was reviewing it, that I wanted more plays out of the system, but I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. It's from the designer of Carson City, designer of Quodd, both games that I really love. I liked Carnegie. I want to dive back into it and see more about it. There's some interesting elements going on, specifically the aspect that you can set the activation for others. You basically control what's happening around, and so the players have to build or react accordingly. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to, it's one I did back, and looking forward to getting my copy so I can see whether it grows, stays the same, or goes away, but I have not played it since reviewing it. From there, we're going to go directly to reviews haven't changed. Reviews that have not changed since I covered them. It doesn't look like there are a lot of games that just left in my reviews in January. It looks like most of them were ones that I was a little more favorable to, although we will get into some that have changed. We'll talk about that shortly. But starting off, we had Primal. Primal, which this is not the final copy of, this is just, the prototype copy, but I do still have that. It's one of the, I actually had to send it on, but I got it back because I liked it enough, and it's one that I have played since covering it. It's still a 5 out of 5 for me. I have not dived into it in quite some time, to be clear. Once I got it back, I got a game or two in, and I haven't played it since, primarily because the prototype just doesn't have enough content to keep me invested. It's one where it was a 5 out of 5 for me. I love this game very much, with the caveat that we only got to experience a small subset of what the game is theoretically offering. So it is entirely possible that my opinion might go down a bit once, it can't go up, it's a 5, but it's possible it might go down just because of the nature of maybe the monster variability isn't really there, or maybe the campaign is a disappointment. Honestly, I'm not that worried, just because what I liked here, I don't imagine a way they made it worse. It just might be that the full package doesn't deliver in a way that I want. And obviously, if that happens, that'll affect my final score. But those are just the hypotheticals. I'm not saying what'll happen. I'm just saying, hypothetically, what I experienced from Primal is amazing. I highly recommend watching, first of all, Jeremy Howard, One Stop Co-op Shop. Both of them loved the game, really dove into a King of Average. There were a lot of people who really liked this game, and having played it, I really liked it. It very much hits that combination of a boss battler and Marvel Champions and the experience it's giving. 5 out of 5 has not changed at all. Inish. A game that I still play on a regular basis, and a game that is a 5 out of 5, absolutely. This is back in January of last year. I think possibly because the months were a little lighter. I actually went through reviewing some of my older favorites. Like something like Primal is a new content, it's on Kickstarter, I need to cover it. Other things like Inish are just, hey, by the way, I've had this game in my collection for years, and I want to get it played, and while not played, I want to get it covered for the channel. And something I'm actually doing right now as well is trying to pick some of the games in my top 100, and then slowly just put out reviews of them. I figure if I'm going to do a top 100, some of the games in my top 10 should probably have reviews for. But anyways, that's a bit of a tangent. Point is, Inish was not a new game, it was just me covering one of my games that I love, and it's a 5 out of 5 then, it's a 5 out of 5 now. It has been in my top 10 for 3 years in a row now, and that's only because I've been doing top 10s for only 3 years. It would be in longer otherwise. Similarly with Spirit Island, again, has not changed. Another 5 out of 5, another game that's in my top 10. Well, actually, it's in my top 10. Is it my top 10 this year? I don't think it is. I think it was just outside, wasn't it? It was either just outside. I need to go take a look. I think this was just outside my top 10, if I recall correctly. I think. I have to double check. But either way, Spirit Island is one that's definitely a 5 out of 5. It was a 5 out of 5 last year. It'll be a 5 out of 5 this year. It's just a game that has continued to hold up. Nothing's changed there. I still play it. I still dive into it. I still need to play it with the expansions. I say that, a review can't go up once it's a 5. But honestly, it could. It's still going to be a 5, but it could improve. You can have things like expansions that give you more variability. You can have elements you unlock. I remember when I covered Wild Ascent, when I covered the expansion Wild Ascent Levon Rising, I jokingly put a 5, I said a 5 plus out of 5 in my testimonial. Why? Because you can't go higher than a 5, but the Levon Rising did add more to the experience that I was already really loving, so you could have that aspect, which begs the question, it's a longer, I'm not going to go down that road. It's a longer conversation about the nature of reviews and scores and numbers. We won't go down that road. And now to the part that's theoretically interesting for those looking for things that have changed. A lot of these games in the next section have left. They weren't games that left right away, but they are games that left over time. So these are all the reviews that potentially changed, not potentially, that did in some way change since me covering them. Starting off with Quodd Heroes, the last of the boxes on the table here. Well, we'll get to all of them shortly. Quodd Heroes. Quodd Heroes was a game that was a 4, and it's still a 4. To be very clear, the rating for Quodd Heroes hasn't changed, but in general, I've talked about this in the past in this series. If my opinions or thoughts or general projections in any way change, even if it's not a score change, I will cover that. And for Quodd Heroes is a game that I don't know if it lasts in my collection forever. I don't know. I'm constantly trying to get rid of games that I don't see hitting the table, and as much as I love Quodd Heroes, as fun as I think the experience is, it is one that's harder to table. It's a little messy, and it's one that if I don't have the rules locked in, I have to kind of re-dive into it. So I'm faced with this question of, okay, great, if I'm recommitting to a rule book, if I'm recommitting to a game that's a little messy and I need to dive into it, I can do Quodd Heroes or I can do Mage Knight. And I'm going to choose Mage Knight. So my opinion of Quodd Heroes hasn't changed, and it has not left my collection yet. But it is starting to get that little stinky eye of, oh, maybe this leaves in some future purge. I really like it. It's really good. I'm looking forward to the next Kickstarter, which should have been a year ago by now, but hasn't been. We'll see what happens. Maybe it's canceled. I don't know what's happening. Maybe they're waiting till everything settles. That could happen. Never. I don't know. All I know is I hope I'm able to make up my mind before another Kickstarter shows up, because if another Kickstarter showed up tomorrow, I don't know if I'd be backing it or not. On the one hand, I'd want to back it, but how can I possibly back a game that I wonder if it'll stay? Quodd Heroes is a fun experience beyond belief, but it's so messy, it's so chaotic, it's so crazy, gives you a ton of variability. It is a strong 4, but a strong 4 that I don't know if I'll table, which makes it very tricky. And some of that's a me problem. I play a lot of games, which means when a game provides a barrier to entry, such as campaign games, difficult rule books, things like that, because I have so many other games, sometimes those games don't get the attention that they might get in a smaller, more focused collection. But that is Quodd Heroes. From there we have Unicorn Fever. Unicorn Fever, I would have given a 4. Again, I still wasn't giving official numbers, but was a 4 at the time. And it's one that did slowly drop to a 3. Now, I did mention in my review that it's one that I didn't know about the longevity of, and that held true. Because it falls into this weird space where thematically it didn't feel right for game night, but it worked for game night. Mechanically, it worked. It's a reprint of a game called Horse Fever, and they rethemed it to this crazy cartoonish style. I enjoyed the game. I had a lot of fun playing with my daughter, playing with my friends, but it's one that eventually kind of settled a bit, and then did leave the collection. A good game, a lot of fun, gives it's a racing betting feeling to it, a lot of push your luck, a lot of trying to just make it work, gives you some really fun moments, but some of the fun moments that I also get from other games at the same time, so it's one that did slowly settle to a 3 and eventually left the collection. Then we have the Castles of Tuscany. Castles of Tuscany was another one that it was a 3 at the time, and then it stayed a 3, but has since left. Castles of Tuscany was one that in our review, I did a joint review together with my wife, we reviewed the game, and we were okay with it. It was the spiritual successor to Castles of Burgundy, one of both of our favorite games of all time. It was my number 2 of all time, Castles of Burgundy. And so I had to play Castles of Tuscany. And I liked it. I did. It was a very solid game. It's just that I couldn't stop. I kept diving into it. It's almost similar to what happened with Ares Expedition and Terraforming Mars. The idea of having some spiritual successor that changes things up and gives you a faster playtime while maintaining a lot of the promise. The difference is, I actually think Ares Expedition is a fantastic game. It still does not hold up to Terraforming Mars, but I do think Ares Expedition is a fantastic experience. Terraforming Mars is a 5. Ares Expedition is a 4, a strong 4 for me. Whereas for Castles of Tuscany, it gave me the feeling of Castles of Burgundy, but it didn't live up as far as the general mechanics. It felt too diluted. It didn't do enough interesting things that were new, and so it's one that was a 3, and then we kept it around to see if we'd play it, and we didn't, and so it has since left. Then we have Kitara. Kitara is a game from Yellow Games, and it's one that is a form of area control, very interesting mechanic going on as you lay out cards that try to power up your tribe, power up your actions as you go through the game. It was a 3 at the time, and it's continued to be a 3, but it's a 3 that left. Like other games, I said in my review that I'm trying to remember, I don't watch my reviews before I do these, I probably should, but if I recall correctly, I said in my review that I wanted an expansion to really solidify it for me. And I kept it around for a bit, and I don't know how long you hold on to a game hoping for an expansion, but it's one that, I liked the game. It was solid, but I felt it needed a little more variability and a little more variety in the experience it gives. So while I enjoyed it, went through it a bunch of times, it's one that I found myself not pulling out and playing after my review, and so I don't know how many months later, but at some point it did eventually leave. Then from there we have Kingdom Run. Kingdom Run is a kids game that for me was a 2. For my kids, my children enjoyed it, my children liked playing it, but eventually they gave me the go-ahead to get rid of it because we have lots of other kids games that they prefer playing instead. So again, I never liked it to begin with. It was one of those kids games that I'm playing for my children as opposed to a kids game that I'm enjoying and having fun with and playing with them. It's playing for them versus playing with them, but it's one that they eventually let me get rid of. And then lastly, like I said already, this is a shorter video, not a lot of January titles. Lastly, we have Mondrian Blocks. Mondrian Blocks was a 3 at the time, and it has since left. This one I've played a ton through it. Mondrian Blocks is a little puzzle game in which you try to line up blocks to fit the specific pattern you have. Similar to games like Rush Hour, that style of genre of game. We have a puzzle, and then trying to just make it work, and then draw another puzzle card, try to make it work, rinse and repeat. My favorite version of playing Mondrian Blocks was actually having 2 of them where you played a duel. You both played the card, and then you both tried to recreate and rush through that pattern. I liked it a lot more that way. Felt more like a challenge with other players as opposed to a solo engine. I liked it, I enjoyed it, we've continued to play it, and then, like, I think last month or 2 months ago, it eventually finally left. It's one that we just went through enough and got enough out of the experience, and similar to other titles here, it's one that doesn't have enough variability in what it's doing. It's the same puzzle again and again and again. I like those things, but I also like them on apps where I download them and play them, and then eventually the app leaves my phone too. No difference with Mondrian Blocks. It is a good, solid experience, but one that just doesn't have the variability I'm seeking. I think that games like Ubongo probably do it slightly better. They give you that same kind of placement tactical puzzle, but they really focus much more heavily on the competitive nature of the experience, which is, I think, where I like those experiences more. I like them more as a competitive experience. As a solo game, unless you up the variability in some way, it just eventually gets boring. And that is basically what I reviewed in January. Not a lot of titles. This is a shorter video, but that is what it is. Got to make the video content match the video length. This is like YouTube 101. They're like, the video length should match the content. The fact that my videos are normally 20 plus minutes is because I normally have 20 plus minutes of things to say. I don't today, and so we're going to call this a wrap, with an early wrap-up. In any case, this is Where Are They Now?, the games I reviewed last year, and as always, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.